This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
Welcome in. Another edition of the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Murray, on this lovely Thursday, joined, as always, here at the D in downtown Las Vegas by my Thursday partner in crime, Matt Youmans, as we get ready for Week 11 of the college football season. Mr. Youmans?
I'm ready for it. It's a pretty good schedule. Like the plays this week. Hopefully we have some winners, Tim.
But do we want winners?
We want winners.
We want winners. All right, let's get right into it. It's getting close. It is the month of November here, so I'm hungry. Let's get into the biggest games of the weekend.
The main course.
Yes, indeed. All right, we start on Baton Rouge, where Jimmy Ott, I don't know if he'll be wearing clothes. Probably will be. He's going to be fired up, though, regardless. Our good friend down there. Number 15, LSU, hosting Alabama. Right now, point spread sits at 3 in this one. And immediately when I looked at the card this week, I said, oh, I know where Matt's going to be headed in this spot. So total of 58.5 underdogs in SEC play so far this year. 29-13 ATS. Home dog, Mr. Youmans. Got to imagine that is tempting for you.
Yeah, it's not like I just look at home dogs only every week, but it seems like the last few weeks that's all I played. And the home dogs have jumped off the page to me. Hopefully LSU treats me better than Penn State and Michigan did a week ago. I made this number 1.5. I'm surprised Alabama is a full 3-point favorite. When you look at this Bama team, Tim, it's definitely declined from the end of the Nick Saban era. The defense especially has declined. Prior to the 34-0 victory over Missouri, which had a quarterback situation that was a mess, Alabama defense allowed 29.7 points over the previous 3 games. That was against Vandy, South Carolina, and Tennessee. So with the decline of the Alabama defense, the fact that Jalen Milroe has been making some poor decisions at quarterback and has not been playing as efficiently as he did, let's say, early in the season, and especially in that game against Georgia, I think the LSU's got to be a live home dog here. At night in Baton Rouge, typically I take LSU as a home dog and typically win those plays. Our friend Jimmy Ott from ESPN Radio Baton Rouge, who was on the show with us earlier this week, said he, quote, loves LSU.
Wow.
In this spot. That's a strong word, Tim.
Optimism from Jimmy on LSU?
And Jimmy loves LSU in this game, so that's enough to nudge me over the top here.
I am with you. It'll be a common play for us. I took the 3 with LSU. Here's a couple nuggets from our friend, America's Insider, Brett McMurphy, coming off a great week, by the way, in the Circa Friday Football Invitational. LSU, a 3-point home dog to Alabama. This is the 9th consecutive time LSU has been an underdog at home to Bama. They have lost 6 of the last 8 home games against Bama, 4-4 against the spread. The last time LSU as a home favorite against Bama, 2006, when it was Jamarcus Russell and John Parker Wilson. I know that is some crazy stats as people get excited
great
about
research, Tim.
the Sigma Derby. Well, great research to Brett McMurphy. I think Garrett Nussmeier, if he can avoid the turnovers, which obviously he fell victim to, much to my delight, against Texas A&M, I think this secondary can be had for Alabama. Carson Beck, who had that horrendous first half, threw for 439 yards against this Alabama secondary. And we've seen leakiness from this Bama secondary all throughout the year. And I guess the worries I would have are twofold. I do worry that Grant Dellinger continues to be out, their left guard, LSU's left guard. And also, we saw that this LSU defense is susceptible to the quarterback run, and Jalen Milroe certainly can do that as you think back to the Texas A&M game. However, you think back to the A&M game, Matt, and I felt like LSU was caught on, a little bit of surprise when Wegman was yanked from the game and they opted to go with more of the run. I think they'll be prepared coming off extended rest here. I'm going to trust in Brian Kelly here as a short home dog. Give me the 3 with LSU.
Yep.
Sticking in the SEC, number 3 Georgia at number 16 Ole Miss. This is 3:30 Eastern on ABC, and this one we've seen a little bit of movement towards the dog in this spot. 2.5s out there. If you do like a 3, you still can find a 3 if you're looking to bet the dog in this one, Matt. I've gone back and forth in this one. Ultimately, I have decided to stay off this one. It was a lean towards Georgia, but I do think this Ole Miss team is on par A lot of injuries on the injury report. I don't know if that was gamesmanship from Lane Kiffin. 26 players in all on the injury report for Ole Miss. Curious your thoughts in this one. Ole Miss catching 2.5, 3 at home, depending on what shop you're looking at.
Yeah, I think some of that is gamesmanship, and also Lane Kiffin looking for some sympathy. Look how many injured players we got. How could we possibly win this game? You know, no wonder our season's in a tailspin. Well, this is a chance for the Rebels to save their season.
Yep.
If they can beat Georgia here, they still got a shot to get in the 12-team playoff. I kind of lean Ole Miss, but to be honest, I've waffled on this game this week. When you waffle, it's not a good idea to wager. So Jackson Dart's had an outstanding season, actually. 21 TD passes, 3 interceptions. But we're not hearing any Jackson Dart talk in the Heisman anymore. We're not hearing any talk about Ole Miss in general. So I kind of like that Ole Miss is flying under the radar headed into this game. I am not a Carson Beck fan. You know, I said that actually before the Alabama game. I don't think he's a first-round draft pick, Tim. He's played like someone who's distracted by a bunch of outside influences this season, thrown way too many picks. I did back Georgia in the game at Texas, but this is a bit of a different situation here. I kind of lean Ole Miss, but I'm not going to play it.
Jackson Dart was 100-1 to win the Heisman Trophy last week at FanDuel.
Yeah, he's not going to win it.
He's not going to win it, but his numbers have shrunk down to 20-1 at most shops. He was incredible against Arkansas. Injuries, Henry Parrish, running back for Ole Miss, he is officially out. 678 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns. Trey Harris, who's missed the last 2 games, 987 receiving yards. He's listed as doubtful. Jordan Watkins listed as doubtful. But yeah, once again, as pointed out, this does feel like a little bit of gamesmanship. Lane Kiffin has been at Ole Miss since 2020, playing top 10 teams or top 5 teams. Lost to Florida by 4, lost to Bama by 15 in 2020, lost to Bama by 21 in 2021. They beat 7th-ranked Kentucky in 2022, lost to Bama in 2022, and then last year, a spot against Georgia, they lost by 35 there late in the season. So, yeah, no play for me. Fascinated to watch this game, and I do think, was Lane Kiffin bitching about the fact that this game wasn't on prime time either?
I believe he was. He wanted a night game.
Yeah.
He's complained that LSU gets all the night games and Ole Miss doesn't. You know what? All those results you read off from previous years, that's all somewhat relevant. But also you have to consider those Georgia and Alabama teams were much better than this year's Georgia and Alabama teams. And this Ole Miss team is better than Lane Kiffin has had in the past. So in the past, when he tried to step up in class, he got his butt kicked. I don't think that's going to happen here.
Carson Beck, 11 interceptions so far on the year. Late night, the Stormy game. Stormy will be on the sidelines for the Holy War. BYU, number 9 in the college football playoff rankings at Utah. I was surprised when I started to dive into it, thinking about how disappointing this year has been for Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah.
His offensive coordinator, Andy Lugwood, has retired. Cam Rising done for the year. This is the first time this season that Utah has been an underdog. They were a favorite in their first 8 games. Southern Utah, Baylor, Utah State, Oklahoma State, Arizona, Arizona State, TCU, and then Houston. It has been a massively disappointing year for the Utes, but I think you and I are thinking similarly here. It does feel a little bit like this is the Super Bowl for Utah. Rivalry game. These two teams hate each other. I don't know who the starting quarterback's going to be, Brandon Rose or Isaac Wilson. I don't think anyone will know. The last time these two teams played each other, 2021, BYU snapped a 9-game losing streak to Utah with a win. I like the Utes here. I took 4. Market's starting to agree with me. It's down to 3. Starting to get a little bit fuzzy if I play it at 3, but I still like the Utes here in a what feels like a desperation spot, save our season type of game.
Yeah, I took the Utes plus 4 here. This is a pretty easy decision for me this week. It's going to be a cold night in Salt Lake City. Rice-Eccles Stadium is a place where BYU has not won in about 20 years. I think Isaac Wilson probably should get to start, and he's thrown too many picks. He's got 8 interceptions with those 8 TD passes. Behind him, you got Micah Bernard, who's a stud running back, a couple of big-time receivers that Isaac Wilson can go to here. But the offense is not really what I want to talk about. It's Utah defense. Kyle Whittingham's defense allowing 16.8 points per game. What you're going to see with a really good defense for BYU on the other side is a low-scoring, tight game on Saturday night. I don't think Whittingham is going to allow his quarterback to lose the game. He wants his defense to put his team in position to win it in the fourth quarter. I'm actually thinking under the total here too, but it'd have to be 41 if I were going to play it under. That's a key number in totals. And there's also the possibility you could have overtime in a game like this. I do think it's going to be tight, low scoring. I see value in taking the points with Utah with that defense. And like you said, you use the phrase Super Bowl. At this time of season, teams like this are trying to salvage their season with a big win in a game like this.
Yeah, and Utah would love nothing more to ruin the season for BYU. BYU, the highest-ranked Big 12 team right now. If the season ended today, they would get the number 4 seed in the college football playoff. A lot of football still to be played, but I know there's a lot of schedule win-lossing out there, and people are just saying, well, who's BYU possibly going to lose to? And they've been a great story so far this year. Retzlaff has played his butt off, but look, a game that you and I bet a couple weeks back was Kansas State at BYU. We love that spot for BYU. They only had 241 yards of offense in that game. They should have lost to Oklahoma State on a Friday night.
I was going to say, Tim, BYU needed a Friday night miracle to beat Oklahoma State in Provo. And by the way, Utah is 9-1 ATS as an underdog in this rivalry. And the Utes, after starting 4-0, have lost 4 in a row, and I think this is a spot they've got to be geared up for here Saturday
Kyle
night.
Whittingham has been the head coach of the Utes since 2005. Since 2005, Utah 41-26-2 as an underdog. So, Utah, get us to Covertown. Let's get it to Covertown. That's Matt Youmans. I'm Tim Murray. The Indiana Hoosiers are laying 2 touchdowns. Could we possibly go against the Hoosiers again? We'll talk about that game and plenty more. It is the College Football Betting Podcast.
This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
We keep it rolling here. It is the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get a podcast. And as I always say, if you see a stranger on the street, make sure you let them know about the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast. Matt Youmans, not a stranger, my partner in crime on VSiN Primetime as well on Thursdays here on the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast. All right, one more game in the main course before we get to those spicy matchups. 3:30 Eastern on CBS, Michigan at Indiana. On Tuesday with Adam Burke, I vowed never to do it again. I will not do it, Matt. I am not going into the freight train that is Indiana, who, since not covering week 1 against FIU, has covered 8 straight games by 20.6 points per game. They were down 10-0. I was feeling like a genius. You and I both had Michigan State last week, and then Indiana scored 47 unanswered. They are a 14.5, 15-point favorite here against the Wolverines. Any interest in the dog here, Matt, in Bloomington?
Tim, geniuses are not made in the first quarter of football games. Penn State led Michigan 10-0 last week, right? And you said, you must be smiling. I said, I'm not smiling. I guarantee it. You got a long way to go. You got 3 quarters to go. Michigan State up 10-0 on Indiana last week. That lead evaporated in no time. So I don't want to lay the points with Indiana here because it's a dramatic role reversal. Hoosiers are favored over Michigan for the first time since 1968. That's about 30 years before Tim was born. And that's a span of, 42 football games. Indiana has not been favored against Michigan. And now, all of a sudden, favored by 14.5. So that type of role reversal typically would put me on the underdog here. But I'm not going to bet the dog here because Michigan last week against Oregon actually looked pretty dead on the defensive side of the football for the first time. I was really disappointed in the way the Michigan defense failed to bring it last week against the Ducks. Even in the fourth quarter in that drive where Oregon went down the field and scored with 25 seconds to go, you knew what the Ducks were going to run. The Wolverine defense couldn't even stop it. Indiana right now outgaining opponents by more than 200 yards per game, Tim. I'm not seeing the quarterback play from the Wolverines that tells me I have to take the points with the dog here because if they fall behind in the game, how are they going to catch up? So that's the problem. You know, if Indiana fell behind Michigan State, had no problem catching up. Michigan is not a team that can play catch up because you're going to try to grind it out on the ground, hope your defense can keep you in the game. I would like to make a case for the dog here, but I'm not going to do it.
We've seen a double-digit dog win outright every single week this year. We had 5 double-digit dogs win outright last week. Jeff Johnson on Twitter said, nervous for my Hoosiers, especially since you're not betting against them anymore. You know what's going to happen as soon as you don't. That was to me. I'm not doing it. Best of luck to you.
How many weeks in a row can you say this, though, about Indiana? This is a flat spot. This is a spot.
I know. That's why I'm out.
There were Sharps taking the points with Maryland against Indiana. Sharps taking the points with Nebraska. On and on and on. And it hasn't worked.
Nope.
Yeah, Washington as well. So why do it this week with a Michigan team with pitiful quarterback play?
Yeah, no thank you whatsoever. So best of luck. All you have to do, apparently, to be a successful bettor, bet on Indiana, bet on the Commanders, and bet on the Lions. That's all you got to do. And you're a rich man. Well, if you're incredibly rich, you can get all the types of food in the world that you want, including spicy food. So let's get to those types of matchups.
Muy caliente. Spicy matchups.
All right, I said betting Indiana, betting the Lions, betting the Commanders, betting Vanderbilt as a dog. That's all you got to do. You see a plus sign, Vanderbilt, give me those points. 6-0 against the spread as an underdog, covering as a dog by 19 points per game. The next closest team without a blemish as a dog this year, ATS, is BYU, who's 4-0 as an underdog. So Vanderbilt gets their 6th win. They're bowl eligible, which is a massive accomplishment for that program. And then you've got South Carolina coming into Nashville, fresh off of a butt whipping at the hands of Texas A&M. Loved that spot last week for the Gamecocks, coming off a bye playing Texas A&M. I want to fade both of these teams, Matt. So I actually didn't play a side here. Earlier in the week, I took 47 under, which was at a number of shops, South Point and stations here in Las Vegas. That number's since come down to 45, 45.5. So it'd be a much smaller play on that. Brad Powers actually likes the over a little bit. But I think this is more of a slow it down, ugly game. I trust South Carolina's defense. I think they're going to get after Diego Pavia, who's a little bit banged up. And, you know, you hear so much, Matt, about teams playing extra hard for bowl eligibility. I do think there's something to be said, especially a team like Vanderbilt, when they get to that accomplishment, if there is just a little bit of, we got there. And they got that win against Auburn. It wasn't pretty, 17-7 last week. I would lean South Carolina here. Wouldn't want to lay the points. I played under 47 earlier in the week.
Yeah, I watched the replay of the Vandy-Auburn game a couple nights ago. Hugh Freeze, what a bust at Auburn. I didn't like to hire at the time, and I hate to hire even more. But Vandy, what a great hire in Clark Lee, right? And the New Mexico State connection. Who would have thought that New Mexico State and Vandy would join forces and become a powerhouse in college football?
Diego Pavia is giving Hugh Freeze nightmares. He has beaten him 3 straight years when Freeze was at Liberty. Then New Mexico State went to the Plains last year, won that game, and then, of course, last week. So Diego Pavia, 11-2-1 ATS as an underdog. We'll see if it continues this week. 4:15 SEC Network.
Vandy's 3-2 in the SEC, and the 2 losses by exactly 3 points to Missouri and Texas. And Vandy very close to winning that game against Texas. I like the Vandy side here. It's not a big bet for me, but I'm taking the points with the Commodores. Diego Pavia, 15 touchdowns, 3 picks. He's just a tough quarterback. He reminds me a little bit of Baker Mayfield in the way he plays and guts it out. And this Vandy team, I don't think is going to sit back and be fat and happy, Tim, because they got 6 wins and they're bowl eligible. I don't think that's going to be happening. The fade spot would be South Carolina off the big win over Texas A&M. Fans storm the field. Huge win for Shane Beamer.
Getting stuck in the hedges.
Gamecocks go on the road to Nashville. I think the home dog is live here, obviously.
All right. Hopefully it's a home dog in a low-scoring affair. That would make me very happy. Let's head to Arrowhead Stadium. Remember, Kansas doesn't have home field this year, doing renovations there in Lawrence. Kansas has got to be one of the most unlucky teams in the nation this year. They are 0-5 in one-possession games. They have a plus-point differential despite the fact winning just 1 conference game so far. And you've got Iowa State coming in as a team who got upset last week by Texas Tech as a 13.5-point favorite. I lean a little bit towards Kansas. I know you're a little bit more strong on this particular side. 3s across the board, total 50.5.
I'm going to play it here. The Jayhawks have been a tough luck team, like you said, and a well-coached team at that. and they're showing no signs of quitting. Here are the losses for Kansas: 23-17, 23-20, 32-28, 38-27, 35-31, 29-27 at Kansas State. Guess what, Tim? What do all 6 of those losses have in common? Jayhawks had the lead in the fourth quarter all 6 times. That's hard to believe. I think Jayhawks got a great shot to have a lead in the fourth quarter here, too. Cyclones have not played very well the last couple weeks. Lucky to beat UCF. Finally ran out of luck a week ago and the loss to Texas Tech. I do like Rocco Beck, the Cyclones quarterback, a lot, but it feels like this is a spot where the Jayhawks are finally going to get over the hump because they've been so close so many times. And Kansas is a 3-point home dog. I'll take it here at Arrowhead.
Yeah, I will. I'll probably join you there. Not an official play, but I do like Kansas. We talked about this on the Wednesdays with Wes episode, and Wes Reynolds also on the Jayhawks, so he likes the +3. All right, we got another home dog situation. Let's go to Denton, Texas. North Texas, the Mean Green, taking on Army. Army coming in at number 25 in the college football playoff rankings, number 18 in the AP poll. Last Saturday during the VSiN college football betting tailgate show, we got word that Bryson Daly was out, a surprise scratch, and now, as Jeff Monken said, he's questionable to probable. I don't know what that means, but we're not going to find out anything probably until closer to game time. That offense last week, albeit against Air Force where there's familiarity, without Bryson Daly, it was bad. It was not a very good offense. Dwayne Coleman was in, rushed for just 48 yards. North Texas coming off a bye. They are not a very good defensive team, but Matt, Army has not faced anybody to the level of North Texas from an offensive standpoint. North Texas, 3rd in the country in total offense on the year, and their 2 conference losses, 52-44 to Memphis, 45-37 to Tulane. I like this spot here for North Texas. I'm going to have a hunch also that Bryson Daly does not play in this game, and if he does play, not going to be 100%. So it was 6. We saw movement today in the market on Thursday down to 4.5. So I gave it out yesterday on VSiN Primetime Wednesday night. I like North Texas, and Brad Powers said he actually thinks this might be an outright victory for the North Texas Mean Green.
It wouldn't be that surprising. Mean Green should be live dogs here at Circa. The number was as high as 6, now down to 4.
All right, let's go Mean Green, North Texas. Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes, will they avoid that Big 12 upset on the road? We'll discuss that and plenty more here on the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast.
This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
We keep it rolling here on the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast, working our way through our best bets. Just added Kansas for Matt plus the 3, and I am on the Mean Green of North Texas with the assumption that Bryson Daly may not play. Therefore, Army took 6 earlier in the week.
Tim, do we have the best theme music of any podcast of VSiN with that college band?
I think we have the best theme music of any podcast in the world, Matt.
I saw Stephanie, our producer, playing the drums over there on the side. I don't think you can top this theme music.
It just feels like you're on campus, doesn't it?
It does.
Feels like you're getting ready.
At the stadium.
By the way, I failed to mention another intangible for the LSU bet that we both have. The live Tiger is back, baby.
That's right.
He will be on the sidelines, I believe, for that game. All right, let's head to Lubbock.
Is there any chance he can play defense?
Let's head to Lubbock. And you know what's funny, because we were just talking about Iowa State, Kansas. You're on Kansas. I'm going to end up on the Jayhawks as well. I sort of wish Iowa State eked that game out, so it would be maybe a little bit of line value more on Iowa State, Kansas, and Texas Tech would be a little bit hungrier.
Yeah.
Now they're coming off this big win. They get a late touchdown from Taj Brooks. By the way, Taj Brooks, the running back for Texas Tech, 6th in the nation in rushing.
Yeah.
He has over 100 yards in every single game. Fun little note about this game, Joey McGuire, head coach of Texas Tech, coached Deion Sanders Jr. in high school, so there's a familiarity between he and Coach Prime. Colorado, as crazy as it sounds, they've been kind of under the radar since that Nebraska ass whooping, so they're 6-2. Kansas State loss really helped them out. They have a decent shot to make it to the Big 12 championship and maybe make it to the college football playoff. I looked a little bit here at Texas Tech. The market is disagreeing with that thought process. The number has gone out to 4. A lean towards Texas Tech for me, Matt, but the fact that they're coming off of that big win over Iowa State, Colorado's coming off a bye, I'm going to pass on this game. Texas Tech at home catching 4.
Yeah, it's not the best situational spot for the Red Raiders, but if I did play a side, I would play Texas Tech here. And I think, the last 2 games we talked about, North Texas and Texas Tech, are 2 dogs that are on my radar. I have not bet yet, but I was thinking about playing this week. By the way, Shedeur Sanders, 21 TD passes. I've watched Shedeur this season, and I know the Las Vegas Raiders have a lot of interest in drafting him in the first round. He doesn't run that much. I'm interested, Tim, when you look at Cam Ward of Miami, we're going to talk about the Hurricanes here in a minute, and Shedeur at Colorado. Which quarterback do you think is the better NFL prospect?
I love Shedeur's arm. I mean, he's got easy pop in that arm. And Cam Ward, I would just say as of right now, the mistakes that he makes drive you crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And I understand it's one throw, but that interception against Cal, I just can't get out of my mind. One of the worst plays I've seen. But when you bet against Cam Ward, as we saw last week, good luck. I mean, they were down double digits in the third quarter, and they ended up covering against Duke. So, yeah, we will talk about Miami here in just a moment.
Tricky spot on the road here for the Buffaloes in Lubbock.
Yeah, and big noon kickoff. Our friend Chris Felica will be there. The game will be at 4 o'clock Eastern on Fox. ACC Network, 8 p.m. We've got Pittsburgh at home against Virginia. This would be what you call a bit of a sandwich spot for the Pitt Panthers. They're coming off of a loss to SMU. Next week, they take on Clemson. And this week, in what I imagine will be a pretty sleepy spot there at whatever they're calling Heinz Field these days, Acrisure Field or Acrisure Stadium. UVA coming to town. I took 7.5, and I'm going to give a tip of the hat to Wes Reynolds. He kind of tipped me off on this one. I still don't believe in this Pittsburgh team. I think they're pretty fraudulent. As we saw last week, they were very fortunate to beat Cal. They've had some comebacks that they've pulled out of their rear ends. So Virginia's been feisty at times this year. I'm going to take the Wahoos on the road, catching 7.5 in a spot that Virginia, you're looking at what their record is right now. They're 4-4. They've got games against Notre Dame and SMU still to come. They really got to figure out ways to get 2 wins. Now, I know the last time we saw Virginia, they got pasted by UNC, but they're coming off a bye here, Matt. I like the spot for Virginia coming off the bye. Pittsburgh just embarrassed by SMU. I'm going to take the 7.5 here with the Wahoos on the road at Pittsburgh, 8 o'clock Eastern on the ACC Network.
A lot of bettors have been looking to play against the Pitt Panthers and finally hit the jackpot last week. Rhett Lashley doing a tremendous job at SMU. He's going to be a hot coach in the offseason.
Yeah, SMU right now, after the Clemson loss to Louisville, very much in the driver's seat to head to the ACC Championship, where they would likely face off against Miami. All right, let's go. Big noon kickoff, and it's Ohio State hosting Purdue. We've got a number at 38. I initially put Ohio State in maybe a letdown spot, but it's Purdue. And we saw Oregon in the prime letdown spot earlier this year go to West Lafayette and shut out this Purdue Boilermaker team. Total sitting at 53, Matt, and that's intriguing you in this game.
Well, I'd rather play the total over than bet on the underdog to do anything positive here. And Purdue might have the toughest schedule in the nation. Also, probably has its worst or second worst football team in the last 50 years. So that's a bad combination. With everything lining up. Hey, Penn State's next after Ohio State. Good luck with that. I think this team, Purdue team, is almost, I don't want to say completely quit, but a lot of guys have quit on Ryan Walters, who looks like a lame duck coach. So what type of defensive effort are you going to get from a bad defense anyway? The scheme, the effort has all been lacking on this Purdue defense. I do think Walters needs to be fired or should be fired soon. And if you look at Ohio State, Buckeyes have not scored more than 38 points in any Big Ten game. I think they're looking to put up a big number at some point, and this is going to be the patsy to do it because Ohio State averaged 52.3 points in the 3 non-conference games, and Purdue's defense basically is similar to those 3 non-conference opponents. With Hudson Card and Ryan Brown, Purdue does have some ability. Devin Mockabee at running back. Purdue has some ability to run the ball here against the Buckeyes defense, like you alluded, might be a little bit of sleep at the wheel after the big Penn State game a week ago. So Purdue could do its part to put up some points. But, Tim, I'm over the total of 53 here, and I think the Buckeyes could get over that total by themselves. I would think they could do it on their own, and this is going to be like a 56-10 type of game.
Ohio State now the betting favorite to win the national championship, and if you looked at that new bracket that was put out there, if they were the 5 seed, boy, it kind of looks tasty to be the 5 seed, maybe take on the Big 12 champ or the Mountain West champ or something like that, and then face the other there in the quarterfinal. Still frustrated. Got too cute last week on Ohio State, Penn State. Should have split the unit, should have gone full game and half game total. Went over in the first half, under in the second half.
If we could bet with hindsight, we'd all be rich, we'd all be geniuses.
Be nice.
You can't do that. But the problem, Penn State should have won that game last week. How many freaking mistakes can you make on both sides of the ball, especially on the offensive side, Tim, when you have a first down inside the 5-yard line? That play call, that's some of the worst play calling in the history of college football inside the 5-yard line last week. How did Penn State not score in that situation?
Sending an offensive lineman in motion.
3 times in a row.
Just give it to Tyler Warren. He's not going to be stopped. Just give it to the big guy. Just run him Wildcat style. All right, well, if you had Duke, you're probably a little bit frustrated too. Maybe not as frustrated as Matt was with his Penn State ticket or my first half under. But Miami's at Georgia Tech. And, Matt, I want to take Georgia Tech here. However, the status of Haynes King is keeping me off of this one. So a clear pass. If we find out that Haynes King is healthy, even if he's playing, who knows how healthy he's going to be. But I do lean a little bit Georgia Tech in this spot, but I will pass. Brent Key normally has played very well as an underdog coach here, but for this one, Matt, no play for me. But Haynes King's health is the thing that's holding me back here.
Yeah, that would be the key, and I would look to play Georgia Tech if Haynes King's going to be in. I think Tech plus 11 here would be one of the better plays on the card, but I can't play it right now. Anybody who bet Duke last week is definitely not betting Georgia Tech in this game.
Oh.
How about Duke? 20.5, 21-point underdog, up 11 in the third quarter, lose by 22.
53.
You would be sick.
It's a 31 final. Yikes. Not too pretty there if you took Duke in that spot. All right, another big spread, noon on ABC. How about the news that Sunbelt Billy is coming back? Rejoice!
It's got to be fantastic news for Florida fans who got to want to throw up on their shoes after getting this news today.
Brian Edwards somewhere right now is ripping out his hair.
Oh, he doesn't have much hair left, so you got to be careful. But
chill out there, Brian, on the hair.
Sunbelt Billy returning another season has got to be a financial move by Scott Strickland.
$26 million buyout.
Yeah, the athletic director of Florida, who is responsible or was irresponsible when he hired Sunbelt Billy, is probably just trying to save face here by keeping him one more year. I think it's a big mistake, but don't you think Lane Kiffin would love to have that Florida job?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. But when you can trot out a Yale transfer to start against Texas, I mean, that's what you got to do, right, ladies and gentlemen? They said DJ Lagway, well, he could play. Have you ever seen the movie Anchorman? I don't believe you. Yeah. I don't believe you. So good luck to Aiden Warner, the Yale transfer. If anything, I would lay the lumber with Texas. I think it could get ugly in Austin. It's never ugly on the island of Hawaii. Are we going late night hunting against the UNLV Rebels? We'll break down that. Couple other Mountain West games. Best bet recap. It is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
This is VSiN's College Football Betting Podcast.
It is the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast, Week 11. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Matt, let's head out to the islands.
Let's do it.
We always love betting on Hawaii football, and shouts to my guy Timmy Chang. A 13-point deficit erased in the fourth quarter last week against Fresno State, and we've got life to our over 4.5 wins ticket now with 4 wins on the year for the Rainbow Warriors. Could they possibly get one this weekend? They are a 13.5 point dog, and we actually saw the betting market on Thursday take some of those points. Matt, are you interested in the Bows here on Saturday night on CBS Sports Network?
I'm more than interested, Tim. I'm intrigued.
Oh.
And, yes, I'm actually.
Are you tickled?
I'm taking the points here with Hawaii. In fact, I bought it up from 13.5 to 14. But for case for this show, it's going to be a best bet of 13.5. Not many people want to buy up from 13.5 to 14, and wouldn't always recommend it, but I did here just in case. I think that you're going to have a high-scoring game in Honolulu Saturday night. The UNLV defense in the last four games has allowed 33 points per game. You got two quarterbacks here playing at a pretty high level, talking about Braden Shager for Hawaii. Timmy Chang's brought along this veteran quarterback really well, and I think you're getting the best out of Shager right now. Like you mentioned last week in that Fresno State game, 2-touchdown dog, big win on the road for the Warriors. They outgained Fresno 346 to 176. Ooh. The Hawaii defense has been playing at a high level. I think that's one thing. You can talk about Shager at quarterback, but the Hawaii defense has made the biggest difference in why this team has surged. Haj Malik Williams for UNLV is still playing outstanding at the quarterback position. 68% completions, 12 touchdowns, 3 picks, almost 500 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. Quarterback play in this game is going to be extremely important. Don't turn it over. Don't make the big mistake. But you got two gunslingers here. You're going to let them go out and make plays. That's why I think maybe even over the total of 50 wouldn't be a bad play here. But I do like Hawaii getting the points. Defense is playing better. Timmy Chang's got his veteran quarterback, Shager, playing at a high level. Hawaii can hang in this game. Hawaii just blew out Nevada 34-13 2 weeks ago, too, to get to 4-4. And, Tim, you're going to get this over 4.5.
Come on, baby.
After this game, even if the Rebels win, as I would expect, they're probably going to win by a score, or I would say somewhere in the 4 to 10 point range would be what I would predict. Hawaii's got Utah State and New Mexico to finish the season. This team still has a chance to get to a bowl for Timmy Chang.
That would be great, and that would be huge for Timmy Chang there. So let's go, Bows. We'll run through a couple more Mountain West games here real quickly. I do have a couple more best bets. Nevada at Boise State. This game will be on Big Fox for Boise State on the Smurf turf, 8 o'clock Eastern. Ashton Genty, if you're wondering, who has gone under his rushing total in the last 2 games against UNLV and then last week against San Diego State. 196 is the number. I would imagine you could potentially see a big game from Ashton Genty, knowing this is on network television up there in Boise, Idaho. I'm not going to lay the lumber here of 24. I know you bet on Nevada last week. Boise State minus 250 to make the college football playoff. Any thoughts on this one?
I'm not going to play this. Jeff Choate, the Nevada coach, is a former Boise assistant. Good friends with Spencer Danielson, the Boise coach. I don't think the Broncos are going to try to rub it in here, but at the same time, I don't feel like taking a 24 at Nevada. This team didn't show much. Really banged up. The Wolfpack team's got a lot of injuries, especially on the defensive side of the football. And Ashton Genty, I think, has shown some signs of slowing down a little bit. Maybe some wear and tear from the 190 carries he's got this season. 20 touchdowns. I would think maybe even you give him a little bit of a breather in the second half if you're up big in this game. You're not going to win the Heisman by piling up a bunch of yards in the fourth quarter against Nevada, right?
If you're Boise State right now, and I get it, you've never had a Heisman Trophy winner in your school's history, you've got an opportunity to get the first round bye. I would just focus on that and not worry about Ashton Genty. All right, 2 games on the CW that we'll run through here. San Jose State at Oregon State, 3:30 Eastern. I bet San Jose State. We always like to say what's our least favorite bet of the week. This would probably be my least favorite bet, but I trust in Coach Ken coming off a bye. Both Oregon State is coming off a bye, too. They've got 5 wins, which has been a surprise this year. One of the least returning production in the entire country, and they've got a chance to get to a bowl game. They play Boise, UNLV, and Stanford after this contest. I think this one's important for San Jose State. I took the 3 with the Spartans on the road in Corvallis. And then the other game I bet, Matt, noon Eastern, also on the CW. I don't know if you caught it last week. Syracuse came from 18 down against Virginia Tech, wins the game in overtime. and they're bowl eligible there in Fran Brown's first year. Now they've got to go on the road to Boston College, noon start time there in Chestnut Hill, 15 days off for Bill O'Brien's squad. They've got an opportunity here moving forward, do the Boston College Eagles to get to bowl eligibility with Syracuse, UNC, and Pitt remaining all at home. How about Syracuse? 4-1 in one-possession games. I took the money line, -120 earlier this week. Looks like DraftKings -122. So those two more bets for me. San Jose State plus the points, and then BC at home as a short money line favorite there against Syracuse, Matt. Couple other games I just want to throw your way before we get to our best bet recap. Clemson coming off the loss. Virginia Tech coming off a loss. Clemson got exposed a bit by big game Jeff Brom last week. And, on the tailgate show, I did ultimately get to the window. I don't know the status of Kyron Drones, who was a scratch in that one. I would stay off this one personally. It's not going to be a night game either there in Blacksburg. And then what do you expect from Penn State coming off of that loss? 13-point favorite against Washington at home.
Well, you're really trying to stick the needle on my side right now, aren't
Sorry.
you? Do we have to talk about Penn State again?
We don't have to.
Anyway, Virginia Tech, if you knew they were fully healthy, I would play the Hokies. And if it were a night game, I'd like the Hokies there at Lane Stadium. Dabo Swinney was, you said, a bit exposed, fully exposed last week. That was a bad loss for Clemson, man. That was sick. And I know a lot of sharp bettors who were on Clemson who took a beating in that game, never even close to covering the number. I can't play Penn State for the second week in a row. I know James Franklin's a bully. He beats the bad, unranked teams, steps up in class, gets his butt kicked. I got to think there's a hangover effect. Penn State's got to be a little deflated in how that game played out against Ohio State. Nittany Lions were good enough to win that game, Tim. And it should have been a field goal game. It's sickening that Franklin did it again, and we talked a lot about the offensive coordinator hire, how Andy was going to get him over the hump, and it was the same old crap from Penn State, so I don't want to play it here this week. I wouldn't be surprised if that team doesn't play with a lot of enthusiasm in that game. Washington's been a team I've liked the entire season.
Jed Fish as a dog has been pretty profitable thinking back to his days at Arizona. So that is a whiteout game. I know people were upset that the whiteout game wasn't last week. It is this week.
It should have been last week. Yep. Ohio State, Penn State, and I hate the way the TV and especially that Fox Big Noon kickoff ruins the atmosphere. Or, it didn't ruin the atmosphere, but would have been much better as a night game for everybody. And by the way, props to the Penn State fans because they show up year after year. It's an awesome atmosphere in Happy Valley, and all James Franklin does is crap all over him.
With that being said, let's recap our best bets.
Best bets recap.
All right, Matt Youmans. Penn State.
Can you tell I'm still taking
Penn
off
State,
Penn State
not
game?
on his best bets here.
No.
Just putting it out there. All right, run through your best bets, Matt.
All right, Purdue, Ohio State over 53. I think the Buckeyes could get over this number on their own in a 56-10 type of game. Kansas has had the lead in the fourth quarter in all 6 losses. I like the Jayhawks at Arrowhead Stadium against an Iowa State team favored on the road here. Kansas +3. Home dogs, LSU at night and Baton Rouge. LSU +3. How about Utah +4? It's going to be a cold night. And Salt Lake City, Stormy Bonantonio, superstar here at VSiN, going to be on the sideline for that game, right? Dress warm, Stormy, because it's going to be a cold night. And I do like the Utes +4, sort of their Super Bowl game here to try to ruin BYU's season. And let's go to the islands. Saturday night, Hawaii +13.5 against UNLV.
Would Stormy rather be the sideline reporter for Hawaii?
She's had a great game. She'd probably prefer to be in Hawaii, but she's had a great game in Salt Lake City.
That'll be a fun one, no doubt, and that's a common play. Utah +4, down to 3.5. I would still play it at 3.5, but let's roll with 4. North Texas, we've seen movement here. I think they could win this game outright. Shouts to Brad Powers. This was his best bet on VSiN Primetime. I did put it in before he came on the show. Just putting it out there. North Texas +6. Boston College.
That's all Brad.
On the money line. Well, if it hits, it was my idea. If it misses, it was all Brad's fault. Boston College money line in that spot against Syracuse. We're going to go under the total in Vandy, South Carolina. LSU +3. San Jose State +3. And then UVA +7.5. Let's have ourselves a winning weekend. What do we say, Matt? Do we want winners?
We want winners.
Follow him on Twitter at Matt Youmans 247. Follow me at Tim Murray. Once again, please rate, review, and subscribe. This is the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.